Welcome to the October 7th, 2015 School Committee, Neshoba Regional School Committee meeting. I'm reading off this new site. Okay, we've got a packed agenda tonight, so we're going to try to get through as best we can, and then if we get to certain sections, I'll ask you folks if you're okay if we move a couple pieces to the next meeting if it looks like we're getting tight. Our student isn't here.
He emailed me that he's coming, so I'll maybe just a few minutes late.
We can come back to him. Okay, thanks. Old business, superintendent's goals. Kathy, Cody Ann, do you want to take that?
Sure. I have a handout for everybody relative to the process now, if you don't mind. And then, Michael, do you have a copy of your?
I don't. I heard that they were printing. I have mine. I can get mine.
That's okay. Okay. So.
Oh, I have it.
Oh, you did?
Yep, I brought my packet.
Okay, in the packet, yeah. Okay.
Were you supposed to do citizens' comments? I'm not sure if anybody's.
Why don't you
Did I just jump through them?
You did.
Yeah, do you mind, are there any citizens' comments tonight? No? Okay, thank you. Thank you. Sorry about that. Still person, still resident. Two still residents.
Okay, we need to do, can I,
Yes.
are you ready for me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Lorraine and Whit have copies of the district improvement plan and the school committee request for information to monitor progress towards goals. Lorraine, would you share with Nicole, and Lynn, would you share with Neil? That way, and also the rubric. This is the rubric that we created. So this way, over on this end, have you worked with these people?
I usually do.
This is from the other side. Do you have that? Okay, great. Do you have this?
Yes.
And you have this. Kathy, you want? All right. I'll just keep this for the recycling bin. Okay. First of all, I want to thank the committee and Michael for all the work that they have done, especially Michael, who has worked with us and been very patient with us in explaining, but I think that we have a good product here with the superintendent annual plan. So at the Personnel Subcommittee meeting on Monday, the Personnel Subcommittee voted to recommend that we accept the superintendent's annual plan, but before we put it to a school committee vote, I'd like to go through the process and then have Michael go through his goals, okay? So I'm sorry for all the paper, but I like to be clear, and I tried to make things so that, because this is intense and complicated, and so anyway, if you take this paper right here that says superintendent evaluation process, just want to...
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I just want to, I sort of cut and paste from the DESC, so it's not all my graphics and everything. Okay. So the last time we met, all right, it was on September 9th when we talked about this, that we went over a different version of this, but what I have done is to modify it to represent the work that the committee has done. It is one of the responsibilities of the school committee to work with the superintendent on his annual plan, but that can be done by a subcommittee, and then the recommendation comes back to the school committee. So the first part, as you all can see, is the 5-step process, cycle of continuous improvement, and these are the things that were done on the at the Personnel Subcommittee meeting. Step 1, the superintendent's self-assessment. This step was worked on with the Personnel Subcommittee, and we're going to present the plan today. So the superintendent completed his self-assessment using the rubric that describes the 4 levels of performance in relationship to the standards and the indicators. The superintendent also looked at his 2014-15 evaluation to look for areas to include in his plan. 2, the superintendent identifies professional practice and student learning goals. And so he used the self-assessment to do this. And one of the goals has to relate to student learning, and one has to relate to improving professional practice. Then the superintendent drafts 2 to 4 district improvement goals. And there are 3 district improvement goals, and they are, most of them, I think 2 of them are taken from the district improvement plan. So that kind of overlap is okay with the DESE regs. So the other thing that we have done is the Personnel Subcommittee is, oh, actually, this is what we did on September 9th. We reviewed the rubric. And based on that review, we created, or you gave me the information to create this document, which is a subset of the larger superintendent's rubric, but it includes the areas that folks identified. And you can see that we identified 9 elements from the superintendent's rubric, and they're identified under the 3rd bullet on page 2, and you can reference these, but this reflects the input. We decided that there was no need for revision to any of the elements, and that there were no factors that we noted that would be on the superintendent's control. There was a question about evidence to support the goals. And so the evidence to support the superintendent rubric elements the school committee chose to emphasize will come from the school committee request for information, which is right here. Evidence the superintendent provides to support his professional practice and student learning goals, and those are in the measurable outcomes with deadlines in the annual plan, and as well as reports and presentations to the school committee. So there will be a ton of evidence. So tonight, the superintendent will present the proposed plan to us, and then we'll decide whether or not to accept it. Following the discussion of the proposed goals, we'll vote, and once adopted, the district improvement, student learning, and professional practice goals become the annual plan. So that's, after we get through that, the next part of the cycle is the implementation and collection of evidence, and then in February of 2016, we'll have the mid-cycle review. So that's the process, a lot of which was done through the Personnel Subcommittee, and we're at the point tonight where Michael's going to present his plan.
How much in depth do you want me to go since you've had them in?
Well, I guess, do the high level on each one, and if people have questions, maybe, if you guys have questions, those of you who weren't in the Personnel Committee, obviously the Personnel Committee could too, then speak up. So.
Okay. So, I will read them to you, but essentially what I did is, through my self-assessment, went through work that we're doing, or work that I'm doing specifically, and pulled out where I think they tie either to the district improvement plan or to our performance concerns or questions and so forth. So the first one is the student learning goal. We're really focused on writing this year based on lots of different pieces of evidence. We have a new assessment tool that we're using to help improve instruction. So we're monitoring that. So that's where that goal comes from. My professional practice goal is focused around cooperation and collaboration. I know there was a lot of conversation last year in terms of relationship with our town officials and our town boards, and so that's where that goal comes from, to make sure that we have a good working relationship and everybody agrees that it's a good working relationship. Around the district improvement goals, I focused in on technology. From everything that we're doing with technology, I thought it was important that I lead with a goal around technology there, and much of that evidence will be forthcoming. It's already in progress. We're working on the communication piece as well with the educators and our websites. And then lastly, around communication as well, with all the newness of this board, I focused in on communication with this board, and this is also part of reflection on my evaluation last year with several members wanting me to work on communication with the full board. So that's where that's the high level. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Anybody have any questions? None? How do you think it looks?
Well, I'm a
Lots
big
of
fan. Honestly, you guys, I think this is awesome. Really nice work. Really nice work.
And I just had a question on
Sure.
the measurable outcomes. It
Yes.
says baseline scores in October.
Mhm.
These are A baselines. These are not from baseline.
Oh, no, no,
No.
no. Yes, there's a difference between baseline edge and baseline scores. Typically, the first assessment of the year provides you with the baseline.
Okay.
But yeah,
And
Go ahead,
Just wanna
sorry.
make sure.
Go ahead.
so the first one, the assessment that was created by the teachers, we've got a presentation coming up on
We can? Yeah.
that? Is that on the program?
On the calendar?
Yeah.
We gotta get to the calendar, but, so what has to happen next is, each, and I don't wanna jump too far ahead, but each one of these goals with the deadlines and timelines on it needs to be reflected on the calendar that's also in the packet. So when we get to the point, which is the next topic, which is subcommittee goals, each one of you folks, once we go through the subcommittee goals, will need to make sure this ties back into this document, so that we now know that all of the goals that Michael has, that we have, that subcommittees have, all of our evidence is going to be defined at one point on the calendar.
good.
So I think we have a lot of these in here, Kath, but I'll just want you to review it.
Well, that's, no, go ahead.
I do have one question as I'm going through this. I'll have to go through here. There's one part under the website development using common communication protocol. Their last two bullets, a little, if you could clarify that. Report and superintendent goals updates at 100% have live links in November 2015, and then report and superintendent goals updates that 100% have live links by April 2016.
So there'll be degrees of what those live links look like. They should all, by November, every educator should have their website up and running. And then what I report out in April is more the depth of the quality, but the value, I would say, on those sites.
So the first one is
Just
they've
that
got the
they're there.
template
Yeah,
and they've actually logged in.
right,
And the second one is they've actually got stuff in there
correct.
and they're working.
So do we need to define that more clearly?
I think so.
So do you have a suggestion, Neil?
I think Michael just set that up. If we
We can
could set
add
that as a
that
template for clarification for the initial process, right? I mean, is that what
That's
you would
correct.
call it?
Yes, I would.
And then we could check that at the back end of the year. It would be,
So would that be a key activity then, what you're describing?
well, I'm just defining what you have for measurable outcomes with deadline.
Right, but is it something that we need to insert in this, or is it just an understanding that that's what we're going to do?
No, I would insert that.
Okay, so if you could read it to me, I'll add it, if you don't mind.
I like what you said, Linda, as far as the template.
Well, he has templates here, educated build, educators use templates. But Kathy, are you saying that it has to go under the key activity?
I'm not, I'm questioning, I'm
No,
asking
she
a
just wants the
question.
language.
I want it,
No, that-
we can accept this as amended.
So that 100% of educators have a template.
Have a template, right, have a template in place.
A live template.
A live template in place November 2015.
Template in place. Superintendent goals that updates, goals updates, that 100% of teachers, staff have live links or a template in place?
It's a,
Have
It would be
Is that the live
a
link?
live template in place, right?
Live template, not a link.
Yeah, so so basically it's pretty easy for them. The first one should be easy. The
So
second one is them putting in
100%
their
Material.
material.
have live template in place. Okay, for both.
Well, yeah,
No.
the second
No, I
one
think-
is
no.
the educated material.
Why don't we say a populated template?
populated
But,
template.
but that's gonna be hard unless, Michael, you know what you want that populated to be defined as.
Right, and that, we're working on that now, as far as helping teachers understand how to meet, for example, the family engagement, family and community engagement standard. So we're helping them understand, what are the types of things parents want to see, what are the, and, so.
So can we identify some of the common activities that would be in everybody's site so that we can at least have something that's measurable? Because otherwise, it's really not measurable.
Sounds completed, right? So in April, it will be completed. So that,
you
if
have a
it's
syllabus.
100%, so we have a 100% completed template.
Across all
Across
classrooms.
all educators. I mean, that's my interpretation. I don't know if I'm interpreting that correctly.
Well, I think complete will look different. I mean, there will be a range of what you see on those teacher websites. And so I think complete is a little bit challenging word to use because even I wouldn't say they would be 100% complete because they're dynamic, they're going to be growing. I think as I use the word populated, I think what we're gearing toward is, building teachers' capacity to understand what their parents and students need and want, and they're beginning to use those websites as that interactive communication tool.
So can
it's-
we say that all of the teachers will have the homework assignments? I mean, there's got to be something that,
Syllabus.
Right.
I mean, and we've got a whole school year in order to get it done, right?
Can I make a suggestion, please?
Yes.
I think we're getting into not into the weeds, but just micro managing this. I think if we request that we have a larger view of the things that could be included in a template, I don't think it's for us to say teachers have to have homework assignments on it. Don't get me wrong, big fan of that, but I don't think it's the role of the school committee to
So what's the point of having these websites if they're not, how long will it take to get I'm confused.
All right, let me just finish. I think what we might need more information about are the expectations that the superintendent and principals have for what they want to see on the websites. And I would rather see something framed like that than for us to go in
That's
and
fine,
be-
then,
be-
so that's
So,
fine.
but that would be a key activity
Right.
that, what do you think, Michael? Is that a?
I think that's a good phrase.
What did I say? I said.
Well, the
Expectations.
expectations of principal and superintendent, and that what we could do is under measurable outcomes is that 100% meet expectations as previously discussed, and we'll show you what
Okay.
those.
So,
document what those
can we
Focus on
put
defined.
defined, yes.
Yeah.
Can we put a deadline on when we would see those expectations?
We're working on them now, so December.
Okay.
I can
but-
show them in November.
Okay, November would be good because we have
Yeah,
that
we'll do
other 100% have
The live.
a live template.
Right.
Okay, so I'm going to put November in that. So we're going to add to key activities that the superintendent and principals define expectations for departments and faculty regarding the types of things they want to see on their site. Maybe, Michael, you and I could wordsmith that. And then the other thing that we would have under measurable outcomes is that 100% have live populated template in place across all classrooms.
That's good.
Okay?
That works.
Is that, so, any other questions or changes that anyone wants to,
For this particular one?
anyone?
Okay, I know.
Okay,
The technology, when is the tech advisory meeting?
Still getting everything.
Could we have because it was supposed to happen in September, so I'm just wondering, are we going to wait a while, or?
No, it should be coming right up, because they,
so are you looking for something as a key activity or a measurable outcome related to the tech committee then?
I won't know until we meet.
Okay.
So, but That was something that was supposed to happen in September, and it's not in line with
Okay.
what's happening later. So I
Is-
just wanted to make sure it got asked.
Okay, but is there anything in the key activities where that would come in, that would come in under?
What I'm not seeing is I'm not seeing anything about the network in the key activities.
Because that's not what, this is focused on, this particular goal is focused on integration of technology and using the SAM-R model. So we did not
This is
include
learning.
that, we didn't include it as a district improvement goal. Although I think in the district improvement plan, there's something about that speaks to that.
Right.
So this is a subset, some of this is a subset of the district improvement plan.
Okay, because the SAMs affects the network.
Yes, they're
So we'll know when we get to take that.
okay. Any other comments or
Sure, I have
questions?
comments on superintendent's participation with various of the towns and meeting with town administrators.
Which one are you looking at,
So
Mark?
this is the first page, the second one,
Yes?
Professional
Mhm.
professional practice. So I'm interested in getting a stronger sense of how substantive these potential meetings might be. Like, how long would you guess a quarterly meeting might be with town administrators and
About an hour in length.
and likewise individual meetings with administrators? Is it sort of ad hoc? Is that your thought, or do you have?
The individual
do you think
ones,
of
'cause we
having
want
a
to be as a
calendar
group.
or
So ad hoc would be individual,
right?
yeah.
So it just seems like an hour is really not very much time if administrators have particular things they want to get done, and in a group of three, I'm sure it's even harder for them to feel like they're well.
Well, we're building the agenda together. Well, they're the ones actually who suggested we meet together.
Yeah.
Because I offered to meet individually. And they're part of the agenda building.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not the one building the
You
agenda.
got to work with them, basically.
Right, so.
What do they want to know?
If
basically?
they put down a busier agenda, we'll meet for that amount of time.
Okay,
Sure.
I think it's good.
fair enough. And my other comment is that I also very much appreciate all the work that's gone into creating this.
Great.
Any other questions or comments?
So do
Yes.
you want to make the edits and then bring it back, or do people feel like they want to vote on it? You want to vote on it? How do you
As
feel about
amended.
that?
I'd like to move that we accept it as edited, and that I can put the edits in place, send it to Michael to fine tune it, but I think we have the essence of what it changes. But I think most of the work is done. If people are, accept the goals, the key activities and measurable outcomes, we can tweak in that one area.
All right, does everybody feel good about that? If so, we'll move it to, someone want to entertain a motion?
I second the motion.
I moved it.
You moved
Yes,
it.
she did.
Well, thanks for moving it before I asked for it, but that's awesome. Thanks for moving it. Okay, second, Mark second, all those in favor? It's unanimous. Congratulations, everyone. Michael, nice
And we met our
job.
deadline of October 7th.
That's why she's pushing for the vote.
Just
Okay,
saying.
I want to run through the subcommittee goals, and then Tom will get to you, okay?
Okay.
Thank you so much. All right, so, so each of the subcommittees, first of all, kind of impressive that, I don't know, somebody, whoever's in charge of personnel even has it down to the day, but I'm hoping that everyone had a chance to read through each of the subcommittee goals. And I'd like each one of the chairs to kind of present their goals. You don't have to get into ad nauseum on it, just high level. At this point, everybody should have already read them. But these goals are going to inform the work that you do for the rest of the year, and they fall out of the overarching school committee goals, which support the district improvement goals. So the first one up, let's take it by an alphabetical order. Finance. Mark, do you want to speak to yours?
Find my.
Here, you want?
We decided not to have goals.
I don't think so.
That would
Gonna freewheel it.
Mark,
Do you want this?
We have, I'm actually not sure how to go through. I can just talk about the major goals and then
Right.
pick out a few of the details and give the opportunity for people who have questions. So 4 major topics: collaborate in development of the budget process with the administration with both an annual and a long-term perspective. Details are basically documenting the budget process, which we, thanks in large part to Kathleen's effort, we have a diagram showing what the internal process is, and then likewise, basically we'll be revising as we go, since this is something we haven't really undertaken as a committee. Report to the school committee in the form of interim reports and recommendations. As we get to a point where we feel like we have something to say about the in-process budget, I will bring forward reports, starting with the preliminary information, and then as it becomes less preliminary, more consolidated. And then I hope that we will have something to say about the entire budget at the point that arrives. Third item, work towards understanding the components of the income, expenditure, as well as liabilities and assets of the district. So that is actually, has lots of details, and for that, that's just a matter of, for us to have a education and discovery process for us as committee members, as well as explore the information that's available to us and to be able to think about that. So that's really a roadmap for us on what it is that we want to be thinking about as we're thinking about the budget and the finances altogether. And then item 4, develop a communications process to inform about the district finances to member town leadership and member town communities, as well as to be informed about the member town's finances. So that is, in a very large way, something that we haven't quite undertaken, and that'll be a work-in process to figure out what are the appropriate and best methods to distribute what we know and learn.
So of the components here that you have that are to be determined, do you believe you'll be able to get that work done, or because there's a lot here, and I just want to make sure you guys aren't putting yourselves in a position where you've bitten off an awful lot, and I don't want you to not feel successful, because I think you guys are doing some great work.
Sure, I think it's fine to have goals and say, nope, we didn't meet that goal.
Well, I don't know if I agree with that. I'm not in that.
I'm happy to admit failure as a chair, saying we had this intention and these are the facts. We did or did not succeed at them.
Well,
but also I want to say that to be determined means that we haven't really had a conversation as a committee about that, and it could be we're going to modify the result as a result of that conversation, saying this, that, and the other goal, maybe or maybe not, we're going to actually undertake.
Okay.
So that's what that means in my point of view.
You want to
May
say
I
something?
comment? Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, perspective, and it's good that this is publicly said too. We're trying to wrap our minds around a $52 million plus organization. And we are spending a ton of time doing this. And we've made some great headways initially. Kathy's work with Michael on the workflow, org chart, budget report out process, et cetera, available online, is just dynamite, because we're able to now plan the rest of the process. And really, I think the first year, I think and I hope everyone understands that this is a work in progress, and that as we're developing the process, it's never been done before. So there may be times, like Mark's saying, that we take 2 steps forward and we need to step back 1 just to make sure we get it right, because we don't want to reinvent the wheel every year. We want to have something in place that we can expand upon, but makes it a lot easier for this process and more fluid for things to move forward, right?
Can I just elaborate on, we're not reinventing the budget wheel, that's
Right.
always been the same and it's always happening. We're trying to be better at communicating and documenting and getting the most important things raised up as quickly as possible in the process, but we're not changing the budget process.
That's
We're
right.
literally just trying to document and highlight and share.
Right.
Right.
So,
And we're hoping that it's repeatable.
And it probably will be, because, but the question I have for you folks is, so once we step back from all these subcommittee goals, we do need to vote on them, because as a school committee, we need to agree on what everybody's doing,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
So perhaps what that means is that, first of all, I'm really impressed with everything we have here. I don't know how you're gonna do it, because it's kind of like a full department of finance people in an
I
organization.
suggested hire someone, but
Fortunately, we have two of them right here.
Yeah, right?
I have full-time jobs.
So what I'm wondering is, if you take another couple of weeks to review what's in here, and maybe you identify what you're gonna attack this year, and what could be moved to.
I think we're trying to do this all though, Lorraine. I think we're
Really?
trying to
Yeah.
do all of this.
You really
And
think you can?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say we're
Yeah.
gonna give it an
Yeah.
a honest effort. And not, George is awesome. George is coming every meeting with exactly what's asked and a nice summary. And what we have to get better at is taking just the highlight from that and learning how to put that in a 3-sentence line for this committee, and hopefully by the next meeting,
Right.
we'll give that to this committee.
Okay.
And we'll start with our 3 sentences to give you the meat, and then to start raising up the highlights. But this is what we're gonna try to do.
Okay, because I just don't want to put you guys, I don't want you to allow us to put you in a position where you have to deliver on something that may be difficult. But if you're saying you can do it, then,
Well, the other thing is, and the minutes are going to work their way up from the last, the 28th meeting. We actually were able to establish the buckets. So we defined the
Great.
buckets, and then from there, we were actually able to drill down, and we're creating a sort of like a form.
Template.
Or a template of various questions that will be applied to each bucket, so that there's uniformity. And we can ask these questions, and it makes it easier for George to report out. And there's nothing unexpected. It's just, here's the form, and then we can apply those to the buckets. And then I think what that's going to do is enable us to do pretty much everything if it works.
That's amazing.
And
If
we'll
it works
give you
right.
we'll pass the form up to the school committee, but only with the 2 sentences, 3 sentences highlights that we'll talk about, but that form will always be
Right.
our push to you guys to read.
Right, so you can
Perfect.
drill down on it
If you want,
Right.
or you can just read.
because
it.
I think whatever you write, the general community needs to be able to understand it too, right? So
Right.
that's wonderful. Okay,
Yep.
great. I mean, I'm good with it. I don't think we're ready to vote on this yet unless, I think maybe another, I don't know, what do you think?
I think this is our plan.
Yeah, but I think we need to flesh out that whole thing on here, or no? We do not
No,
put that on
it's
there.
here, it's all there.
Well, there's a lot of,
It's
we don't know
already-
when we're gonna do it
Yeah.
in our plan, so
No,
I'm not sure we're gonna be able to answer it until we're done.
This is
You
their
know?
goals for this year.
Right.
So, I mean, that's,
So we put dates on everything. The to be determined is ongoing. I wouldn't have put to be determined. I probably would have just said ongoing. So,
if you change it to ongoing, I'd be happy with that. But I do think even like, I mean, I have to go through it again. I feel like I need more time to digest it, but it's just maybe me and everybody else may be good. I mean, Q1, Q2, I don't care what it is, but just identify, if you want to say ongoing, say ongoing. And if you guys feel like you're good to go and this is what you can deliver, then
Feel
we'll
good to
take
go?
it.
I
You're
admit,
good to go.
I admit I have to be determined to allow, some of this we
You are
actually
so
haven't really gotten
conservative, good for you.
time, we haven't gotten.
Well, yeah, I mean, we
time to
do.
really figure out a
All right.
That's
schedule.
the 2 steps forward and 1 step back,
Right.
but that, we're never going to define that until we've gone through this year. So I
this is a
think,
trial year.
yeah,
for the
and so I
process.
think, to your point, Kathy, if this is it, then yeah, I mean, what do you think? I mean,
If we can't do it, next year they'll revise it to be slimmer, but this is what we think that should be the yearly output of the finance committee.
and by next year, we will be able to put dates on things because we've gone through the process, so we'll have a better idea of what time.
Well, we're gonna do check-ins too, right? We're gonna do check-ins on our goals to see how are we doing and if things need to be put on hold or, if you're not gonna be able to get to, I just don't like to put goals together that we know we're not gonna meet. So then why do we have it as a goal if we're not gonna be able to meet it? I'm not saying you're saying that, I'm just suggesting if there's a goal that you don't believe you're gonna be able to meet, then either don't put it on there or put it in a parking lot for the following year, because you're still gonna have to address it.
That's not what we're saying.
No,
We're saying
not
we
at
don't know when the goal will be met, but we don't know
Okay.
whether some goals are going to be met in November, or some going to be December, or some in you know what I
Okay.
mean? We just, based on the reporting and what we've able, right, to put together. I mean, that's
This is
really
what we
where
have
our.
to do as a finance committee.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Get us back to where it came
It's a
from.
lot of work, and I'm impressed. And this is one of those documents that a lot of people are gonna be looking for, so thank you. All right, Miss Personnel, Policy.
Are you going alphabetical though?
Whatever.
All
So
right.
do we want to vote,
Then
I'm
I'll
sorry,
do-
do we
what?
want to vote on this then? at
No,
this
we're
point?
gonna we might as well do them all together, because we just, did we do personnel? No, personnel, sorry. So sorry.
No.
Kathy talked for me, so.
I already talked, I already had my turn. So we identified some overarching responsibilities to assist the school committee chair with oversight of the superintendent evaluation process, negotiate superintendent contract and salary, identify district personnel needs that support improved student learning, and participate in collective bargaining agreements. So the goals are based on those, and the activities are outlined. And so the first set of goals or activities are relative to the superintendent's working with the, developing the superintendent's annual plan, and then working with the superintendent on the mid-year cycle review and the end-of-year cycle. The second goal, relative to negotiating the superintendent's contract, the activity is, and I don't know if October 21st is an accurate timeline for that, but we have to develop a timeline and a protocol for engaging in contract negotiations with the superintendent. Third goal, identify district personnel needs for 16-17, evaluate information relative to personnel needs that support improved student learning. That the process will start in October, and then making recommendations relative to personnel needs and identifying the implications for the FY17 budget, and hopefully have some of those by the end of November. The last one is begin preparation for the 16-17 collective bargaining agreements. So we will need to meet with the Director of Human Resources to determine the necessary steps to prepare. And I think that we would need to consult with NRSC regarding training and resources to prepare members of the school committee for collective bargaining. Is anybody on the committee engaged in collective bargaining?
No, none of us have been.
Okay, then I
Yeah, we'll be
think we
looking for
need to
resources,
train.
don't worry.
So that's pretty much it.
Any questions? No questions. Policy.
Policy, the very nature of the policy subcommittee, we can put our little fingers into everything. So we kind of decided to focus on 4 areas that seem to have the most heat around them right now, and what policy may be able to do to help support building those out. Each of the goals has an owner that will usher their goal through policy to the school committee. Again, the very nature of policy means that this is ongoing. So the timing of this, just like you have 5 policies coming up to you today that have gone through the policy committee, you will see different policies as they relate to our goals coming through the school committee regularly. So I would say ongoing for all of these. The 4 areas that we're trying to focus on are the website in particular, how we can support usability of the website. That might be a very short-lived goal, as the new website has come out and we're kind of looking at that, so it actually might be done if there's anything policy can do to help with that. The communication, the surveys, the climate survey and the NEASC report, policies around that, and then financial and the budget, making sure that there are appropriate oversights in place. all of these, we're obviously going to need help with the various other committees. Looking for your expertise, and I like them.
You like them?
So hearty endorsement.
Does anybody have any questions for policy? Would you just do me a little favor and put it into this format? I don't care if these all
Sure.
say ongoing, just because I'd like them all to be in the
Yes.
same format. Okay. No questions on the policy subcommittee goals? Wow. You guys want to vote on these? Feel good about them? Okay, does someone want to make a motion? This is what we're going to focus on for this whole year.
I just have a question. I remember reading it really quickly. Did you have anything on there on the old ones? Because every year there's like old ones we have come up there, and is that part of one of your goals, is to catch up on the old policies?
Well, as it says, in addition to the regular work that...
That's regular work?
Yes.
So who decides when that comes?
Michael, generally, for the old stuff, will put those forward, but if any of us, or if you have any that you would like to put forward, yeah,
Okay.
by all means.
Okay, does anybody want to make a motion to accept or not the subcommittee overarching goals for personnel policy finance?
I
Thank you.
move that we accept the overarching goals of the Personnel Policy and Finance Subcommittees for the 15-16 school year.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Nice work, you guys. I know this was a lot of work, but I really think it's going to help people understand what we're spending our time doing. Okay, our student representative is here. Thank you for being so patient, but please share with us what's going on at the high school.
So the sports teams have been off to a really good start this year. The football team has undefeated, and so are both the boys and the girls cross-country teams. They're both getting off to a hot start again this year. And the girls taking 9 of the first 11 spots in their race yesterday against Westboro at home. The volleyball team has been great this year. I think they are something like 7-1 so far this year. And so they made the playoffs for the first time 2 years ago. They won their first in the playoffs, I think, last year. Now it's looking like they're going to be able to make a strong push in the playoffs for the first time this year and actually be able to contend, which is really exciting for us. And today the math team had their first meet as well, so that went pretty well overall, I think. Model UN is getting ready for their first meet, preparing different debate papers to summarize their policies and what they think of in the Model UN, with the first meeting coming up in the next few weeks, the first meet, I guess would be called, and so that's coming up in the next few weeks. This is homecoming week with the homecoming football game this Friday at home, and we've been having different spirit days, and the seniors I know are really showing their spirit this year with all the different days that are going on. Today was Pink Day, and you could definitely tell that throughout the whole school. There's been a lot of talk today about the new website, and that was a bit of a surprise when I first saw that. And I think there are definitely some improvements that need to be made to it, because I think there are some things that are definitely harder to get to than others. Like I know the teacher websites, like sometimes teachers will put solutions to their review problems on there, and some of them weren't connected, but in the quick links you could get to them or something like that. But I think that needs to be worked over a little bit, but overall it looked like it was a nice new format. I'm sure once I get used to it, everything will be just as easy as the old one, and it looks great from what I saw.
Great, good. Any questions for Tom about anything going on in the high school? Anything else you want to share? You good? Well, thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
All right, so we're now into new business. Michael, you want to share an MCAS overview with
Sure.
us?
So, I've got a couple of documents in there. I'm going to use the PowerPoint slide presentation to kind of walk through. I can show it. Do you want me to show it, or?
Sure. It's up to folks in the audience. I don't know if you want to, you can.
So essentially this year, because of PARC, several of our comparative districts did not participate in PARC. So they don't have data yet. Ideally, they will have it sometime toward they're saying now, I heard yesterday, sometime toward the end of October. So we'll see how that's going to come out. We still do not have, however, what I would call final data because we don't have our accountability information, and that won't be coming out probably until mid-November, and so we await that. Based on what I see here, I don't see our accountability level changing, although certainly we may have some individual schools changing. I think it's very possible, based on the scores that we see for the high school, that we have a chance to have moved to level 1. So that's a wait and see. So there we go. So we analyze our scores every year. We go through it sort of at 3 different levels. We look at it at the district level, and then our ideal is that the value of looking at data is to connect it back to instruction. We want to get it into the hands of teachers in a way that they can use it in a meaningful way. So there's a district level, then the schools will do it at their level through their stat teams. The principals will work with teachers through their CPTs and get it right into each grade level, so that they will look at their performance in ELA and math and STEM. Our ideal is that we want to continue, based on the analysis of the district level, we are still looking at improving our at-risk and special education subgroups. We've made some gains there. We still have some work to do, I think, and it's still the focus of our work as we go forward. We certainly want to, again, get more data for the comparison to really see how things work. Each year, you might have some subtle changes, but ultimately what you're looking at are not only the subgroup scores, whether it be the total for advanced or proficient, but also you want to look at the CPI, and also we look at the student growth scores. And we really didn't have the kind of student growth in those areas in several different places that I would have liked. I would have liked to have been much higher and more consistent about that growth for this past group. But looking at that.
When you talk about growth, are you talking about comparing a 5th grade to a 5th grade, or from when you're going from 5th grade to 6th grade? Are you comparing the grades year over year, or the class that's moving up?
So it's looking at the students within that grade compared to their prior years.
Okay, so it's the class that's moving through.
Right. So it's definitely something that is key. I mean, that's what it's about. It's about adding capacity, and that's where we want to look at that. And so we look at this as an opportunity to really then look back at our curriculum, and if there are changes that we can make there, if we're seeing patterns of inconsistencies in performance, then that's where we're going to take a look. Writing, for example, definitely came out as an area of concern for us. So the state offers a chart called DART, and this year, because of the issue with the PARC scores, the usual comparable group that we've used in the past, that I've used in the past, it really was, the majority were not available. There were only 2 other districts that just did MCAS all the way through. Everybody did MCAS at 10th grade.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
Because this is one of the questions I have. So who are those districts that you typically compare us to?
So, I don't want to leave anybody off.
No.
So, yes, Acton, Boxborough, Concord, Carlisle, Westboro, Harvard, Shrewsbury, Sudbury.
So we compare ourselves to those districts, and they must not be using MCAS?
So only Harvard and Acton-Boxborough last year did MCAS for grades 3 through 8. And again, everybody did the schools for the 10th grade. This tool, and this is something we certainly could bring to policy and talk more about in terms of determining what comparable districts you want to use. This group is chosen by the state. You see as the disclaimer, districts most similar to your district in terms of grade span total enrollment and special population. So you're comparing that kind of information. There's also information about finances that gets factored into that. So you're comparing communities that are more like you in terms of the kids, mostly in terms of the kids that you're servicing. So it's more disparate than the ones that I just spoke about, and so I think maybe there's room for two different types of group. So as you see here, when you look at again, this is total district. When you see here, Neshoba is at 85% for ELA. It puts us sort of right in the middle of this particular group of districts for, again, 3 through 10, with many of the 3 through 5, 3 through 8 not being reported just yet. That will get added into it when they do the crosswalk for the park scores. But then math, we come out stronger here, and rise to the top of the pack, which is kind of a nice piece to see. And then science, similarly, we're right at the top, second to the one in Westford. And then, but then as you look at the student growth percentiles, as a district, we're pretty good. We're in the mid-50s, and solidly, and they do it in quadrants, or in the upper fourth quadrant. Again, there are individual school scores and student growth percentiles for this particular group of kids that I really want to unpack and understand better, so that when they get to the next grade, we see a different level of performance overall.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Is the DART data an aggregate of grades 3 through 10?
Yes.
Okay. And I don't know how much. I don't. Is it your sense that the state is going to go with the park?
Oh, good question. So I met with superintendents yesterday, and I actually in a prior meeting actually talked to a former Board of Education member, and the advice here is that it could go either way. So that's really definitive.
So it would either revert back to MCAS or move forward. The other question I have is about the tools, programs used for the data analysis, like TestWiz, and I know that the Department of Education has something called Edwin.
We use Edwin.
And have they changed Edwin to allow to show cohort growth? Because TestWiz could, but Edwin.
You can know cohort
Yes.
growth. You can do
So you
cohort
can
growth.
look at the same, so if there were 5 kids who started in third grade, you could follow those same 5 all the way
Yes.
through 10.
Yes.
Okay, because
It's
that's
much
good
improved in the last 2 years.
Great, because that's good information to see, especially when you look at the special populations, because they tend to do much better or improve. You see more improvement as they get into 10th grade.
Right.
So that's the kind of data that I'd be interested in seeing. Cohort growth, you do it for the aggregate and then the special populations. So I'm not saying do it this year. I don't know how much, you want to look at your results and everything, but I think once we know what we're going to use moving forward, it would be good to present
Right.
that kind of
Well,
information.
and again, we do use Edwin at the school levels. We really dive in and
Yeah.
look at it that way, and at the district level as well.
Sure.
So, in terms of just going through this, so what is working? I think we have a good delivery system around the curriculum that the majority of our kids are able to do well, and as was pointed out, Kathy pointed out, you want the trajectory to be success. So at the 10th grade, because that's a determining high stake exam for kids. So for ELA at the high school level, for example, we have 98% of our students earning proficient or advanced. So, that's right up there, and it's been incrementally increasing, which is also the direction we want to go. Math, same thing, in terms of incrementally increasing. We were 93 last year, we're at 94% this year. So that's what we really want to see and be there for our kids.
I just wanted to say the high school scores were really, really impressive, and I noticed that in our DART this year, and I don't think King Philip was in our DART last year.
No, it does change.
And it does change, but King Philip was on Newsweek's America's top 500 schools this year. It was like 3-something in the threes. It's one of the best schools in all of America. And I know they're all different, but people do tend to read Newsweek, and we're really close to their MCAS scores and their demographics. So
Absolutely.
I just thought that was interesting, and the high school scores are really phenomenal.
Right, and that's why I'm hoping and believing that we're very close to being level 1 there, because we've increased every year. And that keeps, in order, the metric that they use, you would essentially have to increase every year to get there. So,
Michael, how's the metric going to change, though, with some of these schools taking the PARC test and some taking MCAS? Because now we're comparing apples to oranges, aren't we, as far as when they start determining rankings and so forth?
So the state Department of Elementary and Secondary Education is taking painstaking statistics courses to build a crosswalk, to be able to have an orange to orange comparison. We haven't seen the data, so we don't know. But it's a pretty difficult task because, for example, MCAS has 4 report out, PARC has 5. So you know there's going to be some challenge somewhere by somebody. So we're looking forward to seeing what they report out. I haven't seen the crosswalks myself, so I don't know personally what it looks like, what that would mean ultimately. The challenge for us, certainly, and I probably should have added it here, in some respects related somewhat to the PARC. It's not to the analysis of our MCAS, but if they decide to go to PARC, we have a very short window to gear up. We're prepared for that. We've been preparing for that. But we have a very short window to work with kids, especially to make sure they're ready to take an assessment on a computer. We're working on that now even, but I'll have more with that if we in fact do decide to go with PARC, because there will be some things that we will be doing to make sure that kids are ready for that. So we definitely look at the longitudinal trends. We're not jumping at 1 year and saying, oh, there's a problem, but we always look at that 1 year and say that's still something we've got to address for that group of kids. And so that work has already begun, and they're definitely working on that within the schools. The STAT teams are a critical part of that, and they do the planning for the PLUS work as well as other kinds of work that may include IEP-related issues, 504-related concerns, and after-school activities and so forth that can be happening for all kids. Our principals, teachers, and CIA coordinators, they're all involved in this work. It's not done in isolation. It's a team effort. And in terms of if there are recommendations for either staffing changes or programmatic changes, we certainly will be ready to do that in January as part of the budget process, so folks will know what we're looking for. The things that we are already looking at, are in the works. Our math resources is certainly our number one recommendation. Science materials will be next. Those are sort of the big picture. Our alternatives, of course, are to do some portion of those, and because that's where we are in terms of curriculum and work-related pieces. The writing itself is not a resource-based as of yet, so we don't need to invest money there. There may be some PD pieces, but they'll be part of the existing budget to be able to do that. And then, so these are the costs that you've seen before for the math that we might be talking about in January. And STEM resources, if we did the full boat, K through 8, we'd be talking about a similar amount. I don't envision that. I'm not clear that the committee is going to be ready to go that far in that first year anyway. And as soon as we have a fuller understanding of our assessment from the state, we'll be diving deeper into the growth piece and the achievement piece and making sure that our kids are programmed appropriately for this year, they're based on this year's.
What's the cutoff number for having to report high needs students? Is it 9 or 12 or something like that?
It's been 10.
It's been 10.
Yeah.
Because in Stowe, it appears that there are no high need students, but there are less than 10 probably at
Right,
each school.
the sample.
It would be good, and I don't know what format you would present this in, but to have some visibility to those students, even though it's not reported through progress, they still took the test.
Right.
And
We know their
without-
individual scores, so we know whether they.
Yeah, but I'm not looking for names or anything
No,
like
no,
that.
no, but
But
they-
just, yes, but to see how they did, and particularly with those kids, if there is cohort growth from 3 to 8.
Sure.
So I don't know if that's included in this, but moving forward, if we go that, if any school or any town doesn't have the kids reported in the data because of that number, I think we should still know how they're doing and their growth.
Sure.
Okay, great, thank you.
And just lastly, I think the piece about impact, certainly because we're going to be looking at math, we're going to be looking at science, there are going to be aspects about math education, professional development that we're going to have to do, and I mentioned a little bit about the technology. Those are components that we're going to have to look at as we go forward, because more and more, not only do the curriculum, the assessment requirements require it, but more and more of the materials that we purchase will have technology-based requirements for activities that teachers will do to teach different aspects of the curriculum. So I think that's an important part of the picture to keep in mind. Ultimately, our goal is to be a level 1 district. I know we can do it, and we're going to work our hardest to get greater coherence. Atlas Rubicon is a big piece of that coherence, and it's teaching to the alignment, the actual curriculum that we have in place, which is a key requirement, and we'll continue to measure our impact through our formative and summative assessments that we have, which are pretty comprehensive and I think valuable. We want to continue to make sure that we're not doing too many on that end as well, because we don't want to take any more time away from instructional time.
I have questions, but before I ask, does anybody have any questions? So, when did these, because my first question was, when are we going to see individual schools, and now they're miraculously in there. When did these get put in?
I think earlier this morning, but they've been on the website since.
But they weren't in the packet, so.
Nope.
So, has everybody had a chance to look at the individual schools? Because I certainly haven't.
Generally, what we've done is we've done the overview, and then we brought in principals to talk individually about their schools, and
But they're in the packet, so.
that's advanced, right? 'Cause we're not doing the individual.
So that answers that, and we'll talk about the principal updates in a second. But, and then my other question is on the comparable districts. I would like for us to get to a point where we use one set. And I understand for this particular presentation, that's all that was in the dark pool. But we have a tendency to kind of jump around from what, when we're looking at the budgets, or we're looking at this group, or we're looking at something else, we're looking at this group. So and I know this has come up before, but I think we need to agree to who our comparable districts are, regardless of
I agree.
what we're measuring. So I don't know if you want to put something together and present that to us.
Yeah, I mean, I've been using the same districts. It's just that we haven't had a formal vote, and it just this year.
I don't even know if it has to be a vote or just an agreement, because it just feels kind of like it moves. And we need to be consistent.
I agree.
So if we could do that, so then going forward, when we compare things, even budget items, you know,
Mhm.
we have to know what we're comparing to.
Yep.
And I think that was it. So, thank you for that. And this kind of dovetails into the next, oh, you do have a question?
No, I want to move that we excuse our student representative, who is going to be the most
Oh, you can
politest
certainly
kid
leave.
I've ever met.
You can certainly leave.
I was just staying,
I
because
thought he
I've
was
never
interested.
been.
Yeah, if you would like to stay, feel
Yeah, I
free
was
to.
just staying because I didn't know that was happening, so.
Oh, nothing else happens. This is it. Go home and do your homework.
Tom, you know you're welcome to stay anytime. Okay. Okay, so thanks, Kath, for that. The next item on the agenda is a principal updates, and Michael had suggested having the principals come in and give us an update tonight, but before we have them come in, I kind of want to have an understanding of what is it that you would like to hear from them, and what, from Michael, I'd like to know, what is it that you would like for them to share with us so that we have a better understanding of what it is we're going to be talking about. So what was your vision?
So, depending on how often you thought they could be there, I think what's really critical, their work is guided by the district improvement plan, and then they build a school improvement plan that is individualized to support that. So I do think it's important that the school committee hears where they are in their school improvement plan, what they've been doing, what they're gearing up to talk about, because the budget document is geared around their recommendations for the following year for the school improvement plan. And so having them come maybe once a quarter allows you to have some context. Okay, what's going on now? You get that kind of in October, November. And then when you see them in February, essentially, to talk about where they are in their budgets and what they're asking for in their budgets, that's when you hear what they're thinking about for their next go-round. Separate from that, and then the end of the year, you would hear essentially how they're rounding out the year, whether they've met their goal or where they have met their goals and so forth. In addition to that, we have, and we've done it a couple of different ways. One way that I thought was especially interesting, and we've done it a couple of times, is to have a workshop setting around the MCAS conversation. And so this year, I think we could even do more assessment conversations. We could begin to look at the other kinds of assessments we're doing, and have each school maybe give a brief overview of where they are and their analysis and what they're doing, but then maybe break down into little groups, which is what we've done at table talks around the assessment.
So, lots of assessments.
Yep.
So how did those assessments relate to these assessments?
So they are those assessments.
Okay, good. That was what I wanted to know. Okay, good. So we don't have additional assessments.
Right. No, they fit right into what you're asking for in terms of monitoring.
All right. So, folks, thoughts about principals coming in? Because I'll tell you, if we're looking at timing, it can't happen in October. We're just overloaded, and November is a possibility. So I'm talking timing, and then we're going to talk topics, right? So November and February, fine. But what do you guys want to hear from the principals? And before I finish that, because I want to hear from teachers and students. So if there's a way to incorporate teachers into those presentations, I think that would be ideal. So what do you guys want to hear from the teacher, from the principals?
I have a question. Do we have to do all the principals all at once?
No.
No, we break them into groups.
What if we had the school committee meeting at the school of the principal that was going to do their presentation with students and teachers, and so just in terms of the venue?
We can talk about that, but I think it's going to be important that these folks can be there too, so there's some logistics.
He was at Hale when we had the meeting at Hale.
Right, but I'm saying we just need, I'm not saying no, I'm saying yes, that sounds great, and I would love to do that, but I really want to talk about the topics.
Sure.
That we're going to cover, but I think that's a great idea, to move from school to school and get some exposure there.
It would seem that to focus it perhaps, and because of the implications for the budget, it would be good for it to be organized around the school improvement plan. That's just my opinion.
Right, and that's what Michael suggested.
Focused.
Keep it focused on the school improvement plan, but I more than anything else just want to know what they want from us. I mean, what can we do to support them?
Yeah.
I love hearing everything that they're doing. I really do. I really do. But in the short time that we're allowed, you know, if we can have a report of all the great programs that are going on, that's great. But I want them to talk to me about what they want me to do.
Right. That's a little different, so it would have to be.
Well, it certainly comes out in the January, February conversation that they're asking for.
It would be good to have a kind of a heads up that, hey, guys, we think that this may be an area we're looking at. And then if it comes up in January, February, it's not a surprise, right? Lynn?
Since we're going to be talking to them about MCAS and what they're doing and assessments, when we have those presentations, I'd like them to speak then.
I'm sorry? Can you hear?
What do you mean you'd like them to speak? They would be speaking. What do you mean?
So when we have a presentation on assessments, the principals will be there? Because I'd like to hear how they're interpreting what's going on with these assessments and how they use the information.
Oh,
No, they'll make those. They'll make those presentations.
So when the assessments come up, it's the principals that are making those presentations, and when they come in and talk about the MCAS and what they're doing to help the
Right.
kids, that's by the principals. Because I'd rather have them integrated into what's going on and not just come out because it means more
what do you mean?
to me. Well, if they're just coming out and saying, you know, we did this and we did this and we're working on this and this is a nice picture and our kids did this.
I think you're saying something similar to what Nicole said, but you're.
Well, she wants to know if I understand.
What do we want? What do we want?
What do they need to?
Right.
What do they need from us to help make them successful?
Right.
I get that. But as they're reporting out to us, you know, we're looking at MCAS, which is an assessment. We're looking at other assessments. I'd like to know, okay, here's the assessment, here's how it works. Okay, what are you guys doing with the information? You know, how is this helping you? What are you doing with it?
So where are you going from the assessment?
Well, I guess I don't really want them to come in and make a presentation. I'd rather them be part of the assessment conversation or part of the MCAS conversation or part of whatever is going on.
Oh, when we were doing report outs on assessments, you'd like them to come in and speak?
Yes.
Okay. Well, we can incorporate
Sure. But Michael's saying
principals.
that they're doing the presentation, or is that something different?
They're presenting their own MCAS. I mean, traditionally, that's what we've done. They've done the analysis.
So they're presenting their MCAS, they're presenting the analysis, and then
If they're presenting,
they're gonna tell us how they're gonna resolve.
Any issues or
so be
concerns?
interactive already.
Interactive, it's not interactive between them. It's
No,
more,
between
it's
you and them.
report out. No, it's just, mostly just a report.
You want, okay, so I wanna move off this, but I really wanna understand, I wanna make sure I'm getting it. You wanna make sure that whatever is presented, that the assessments, so flip it, is it flip it?
Yeah.
When we're talking about assessments, that the principals are coming in and showing us how they're using those assessments or what they're doing with the data that comes out of the assessment.
Right.
And I think what Michael may have said, tell me if I'm wrong, is that when they come in to talk about, hopefully it's not just MCAS, this is the state of my school,
Okay.
and these are the assessments additional assessments we use, and here are some of the things we're going to be doing as a result of it. Is
Right.
that right?
There'd be recommendations.
Okay. I just, Swift is probably better, because I'm hoping that there's more collaboration at that point, and more understanding.
Instead of a report
just-
out.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, we can do it that way.
All right, so can you make a
Right,
note of
I'm
that?
ready
So,
with it.
thank you.
The question
Okay.
I have is, given how short our time is in meetings, does this brings to mind, is it desirable or necessary to have additional meetings to get to know our own administrators in our various schools better? I don't have an answer to that question, but I think it's one that we should think about.
We had talked about trips to the schools, right?
Right.
Items to be considered.
Like we had an hour and a half perhaps to talk with perhaps just 3 principals. That would be educational, I think, for everybody, and it would not feel like we're have to talk briefly and then go out the door, kind of conversation, so.
So you'd rather have a more interactive environment than this meeting?
I have my doubts that the success of, we would be more successful, I think, if we could figure out how to have extended conversations with each person, however that might be, and I don't have a strong idea of what that is.
All right, so I hear what you're saying. Kathy's got something to say. I think what you're saying is you'd like to have more of an interactive session with principals than just a report out.
Sure.
So I think we put that on the next meeting agenda to discuss what that could actually look like. Right? Good job. Thank you.
Maybe like a workshop or something somewhere through the year.
Yeah. I mean, the poor principals, but Kath.
Now I forget what I was
If it comes to you, interrupt me.
I will.
Any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, so the 101, we're going to get a presentation on that. Is it going to be when we actually visit the site as far as middle school?
Well, visiting the site gets a little more complex with the 101 because that means we'd have to do 7 different meetings over 7 meetings, which we don't really have between now and December. I mean, but
What did I
I'm
miss?
open to that. I'm just
Well-
trying to explain the challenge of that.
Logistics.
So one-to-one, it would be nice to hear from the principals.
On the one-to-one
Both the
initiative.
successes and the challenges that they're
So we're off
facing.
topic right now,
No,
but
actually, because if we're bringing administrators in to talk about this, that would be a key thing for the middle school administrators to speak to.
it would, but that is a topic within calendar, so,
Right, that's going to happen.
That's what I was saying when we're, okay.
right, so
Principal's present for that.
that, we need to take that into this discussion. But I hear what you're saying, when we get to the point where we're gonna do our one-to-one initiative review, let's do it in the school.
Do it in the
Is that what you
school, or have the administrators there, not necessarily one individual from technology that's standing outside the classroom, but maybe somebody who's there interacting to see how things are rolling out so that we get a more raw.
So
I
maybe.
think that's one we've talked about, to have a teacher with students come and do a presentation.
We did.
Yeah.
That's our goal.
Okay, that's the goal for that. That's perfect.
Okay, I wanna go back, and finish up the principal updates format. Where did we land? I think where we landed was, we'd like to have a more interactive session with the principals to understand what the assessments are that they're using and their, what they need from us. Pardon?
And to help, I know Lynn talked that she was really interested in assessments, but I think the whole picture of the school isn't just assessments. There's so much more that happens every day than just the tests. And I love the report outs that we used to get, that we've gotten for the last couple of years of what's going on, what new activities, what's, Patrick Perkins was trying a special day, you know. Things like, was it working the next time? I mean, some of the teachers liked it, the changes they're making to improve the school itself. So I love those.
And so it sounds like it might be a meeting unto itself.
Well, we always had those
Yes.
during our meetings.
Like
Like a
Mark,
workshop?
like Mark was talking about. Yes. Well, a few extra here and there throughout the school year. So we can go in depth with it and not dismiss them after 20
Right,
minutes.
I'm putting your name on this, we'll talk about this on Friday.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I could talk about Friday.
Okay, good. Alrighty, I'm gonna move off this topic because I'm not quite sure where to go with it. Other than there's a lot of good information and ideas, and it sounds like we want some type of a more interactive approach. We wanna hear more about what's going on in the schools. We wanna know what they need from us. We wanna see the highlights and how some of the initiatives that we're undertaking are actually occurring in the schools. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Bond approval. Who wants to speak to this?
I think we're going to start with George and we'll go from there.
So our bond sale, refinancing bond sale went through as authorized last time, and we had very, very good results. The results are lower our net interest cost to 1.57% over the remaining 9 years of the bond, which ultimately, after all costs are considered, will save the district, well, the district towns really, because this is a direct pass-through to the town, since it's on the exclusion in each town, $284,556. This was an opportunity to call these bonds, so to speak, at this point, and as I say, we moved down just about 2 full points in our interest rate. So that's the general overall summary. I'd be happy to take any questions or answer any questions that may be out there. I did answer the questions in the letter that Neil had submitted earlier today, and that I think I've emailed it to everybody, so.
So how does the finance committee, because before I sign anything, I want the recommendation from the finance committee.
Well, if you don't sign it, we don't get the bond. It's that simple.
So your recommendation is?
My recommendation is, in the letter that I sent this morning pertaining to this, is more about process, I think, and then being able to ask the questions. And I understand that things were timely, and but if that theory of building in an extra week when going through the negotiating process or whatever could be built in the future, I think it just helps with being able to work together as far as administration and school committee goes. Because then we can look at this, and because this isn't done often, there, I think, were some really good questions that came up about the process and what does this all mean for the district. And even though it could be the best thing in the world, and saving money is, it comes with caveats. And it's nice if we get those sort of in the open and then feel comfortable, rather than only having a day to actually review all of this information, which is just a ton of really deep, complicated stuff. And especially if the school committee is going to vote on this and then put their name on it, it's one thing if it's all administrative driven, but if we're responsible for it, we owe that, I think, that due diligence to the towns, just to be able to ask those questions. And so that was really the root of the crux of my letter, along with the 15 questions I had. And I appreciate you answering all of them on there. But that's, I mean, moving forward, if we could develop a process to do that and work together a little smoothly and sort of build in the fact that, hey, you know what, we've got to run this by, and it just, I just think it makes it smoother for everybody in that process.
So let me kick that to you folks. How are we gonna go forward?
Well, and yeah, I need to think about that a little bit. I understand the desire. Generally, in my experience, this is how bonding has worked, both here and other places I've worked. It is a quick turnaround once it's authorized, and it's a market-sensitive type of thing. So I think that probably the place for that discussion is at the beginning, at the theoretical numbers, before we authorize the bonding. Because once you authorize the bonding, there's no way to avoid this time crunch.
You can't authorize it on the 9th for the 18th negotiations or something like that?
I've never seen it done that way, and usually because these are closed bids, blind bids and stuff like that with specific dates. I suppose you could change the dating. I just don't know enough about it to know that. But once you got to that point, you're committed, though.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that would solve the issue.
When did the discussion in the discovery for the whole process start, though? Because I just learned of it 2 weeks ago, right? And it was like, oh, okay, we're going to do this.
It's the terms. The terms change, though.
No, I get it.
But that's a good point, and I think that we had a benchmark calendar that we had a call date right in the fall of 2015. Okay, so we looked before a couple times to see whether we could refinance our funds to save money, and we knew that this was the time. We called the advisor. The advisor said, we think it's a very, very good market now. We recommend you go. And they did the stuff up, and that's why we brought it and said, we can go now. They think it's a good market. But once you go, again, I'm not an expert, but from my experience and my understanding, you can't, it's a fast process. So in this instance, that's what happened. I guess, theoretically, and maybe I didn't even know enough about it to ask this, could we have said to them a couple weeks ago, well, yes, we want to go, but we don't want to go right away. We want to talk a little bit more about it and understand a little bit more in depth what the, pros and cons are and things like that. I mean, their response would have been, sure, I think their response would have been, yes, you probably could wait, but the issue would be, you have the interest rate risk, as you always do. They felt it was a particularly good time.
But you did say that you've known for a while in fall of 2015 that you were going to have the opportunity. So all I'm suggesting is, a month, 2 months, 3 months beforehand, give us the heads up that it could be coming, no?
You don't even need that long. You just need time to be
I
able
just
to
need
look
to
at it.
understand what it
And
is.
so, like, for instance, the redemption on this actually takes place in January.
Right.
So everything's held in escrow
Right.
between them. So I'm just saying, like, if we built this a week out, it gives us the opportunity rather than the day before. It's just the optics are bad, and it's hard to look. And I truly believe, I take this very seriously, this district was in a lot of trouble, financial trouble, going back, whatever it was, 14 years ago, or whatever. And I just think, again, it's our due diligence as the school committee to just be able to ask these questions. Because, we just, everybody's got great intentions here, I know, but it's just due diligence, I think, is really important for us, especially in this district. And that's all I'm saying. So if we're able to find out, so if that comes up, because I guess there's still another outstanding on this one, $3 million that's going to have to be dealt with at some point. Is that correct, or is this a done deal? Okay.
There is an outstanding issue at the track, but I don't think that's callable. It might be callable in 5 years. I can find out. We do have one other outstanding bond issue, but this is the entire issue here.
And there may be other capital projects or things in the future that could be, and I mean, if we maybe just, stay aware of that, so we can work well together. I think that would be great.
What I hear is that maybe in a meeting that we know we're going to call them up in September, let's say, we have a meeting about the process, and we even use old documents to say, to almost train you and say, this is what's going to happen, it's going to happen in a 2-week window, these are the kinds of things. Maybe even use your letter with the kinds of questions that you asked and go through those so that school committee members know what the process is, understand the tightness of the process.
Well, then we would at least have a heads up, something's coming down the pipe.
Know what other questions to even
Right.
try to
Try to-
start.
Right.
Thinking about it, so forth.
Yeah,
Kind of have a
I
little
think that's a great
training around
idea.
Yeah.
bond. We can maybe even have a rep come in and do
No, I
that.
agree, yeah.
Yeah,
So-
that's a great idea.
And it's not that, I'm not against
No, I
the
hear you.
bond, actually, it's just knowing the
Knowing the
details,
process.
it's the devil's in the details, especially with this stuff. And,
Absolutely.
So finance, you're good with it? You're good with signing off on
That's
it?
your recommendation?
Yeah.
That's your recommendation? Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Does the whole committee take a vote on it?
Yes.
Or-
We need the
That's a
whole-
very long motion.
Yes.
2-page motion in all the documents.
You're gonna read the whole thing?
I don't know. You can
Actually,
refer to it.
I do have one question with the motion. No, because when Mark read that, I went back and I read that motion in there, and is that a motion for specifically this action? Because it says from time to time in there. And to me, that sounds like we're making a motion for any future bonds also.
That is a good
You mean
question.
last meeting motion?
When you read that statement, if you read that statement again, it will say for the
So I would
bond,
interpret
and
it
then
saying-
from time to time, which sounds like we're giving carte blanche and an opening for this just to happen.
I'll let George answer fully, but basically it's the committee authorizing something to go forward. We don't yet know exactly what it is. And
from
therefore-
time to time,
It's
it
not a
could
time to time,
one-time
it turns out
event.
to
It's
be
not
2
a
weeks later.
one-time event. It's saying it could be.
but it's not a one-time
Right,
event. It's not
that's
for
my
this
point.
bond purchase. It says from time to time, we're authorizing from time to time you guys to negotiate.
Right.
I understand what you're saying. That's common language. I'm not quite sure why it's there.
Strike
But
that.
well, I don't know that you can. But it is, I mean, you can, but I don't know what the impact would have on the legality of it. Okay, it was just written by bond counsel, but it's common language. I'm not sure what it means. But
What does this
But
language,
can I just finish here, because I think it'll make you feel slightly better about it. But
well, that was rude, but okay. Go ahead, George. Please finish. Go ahead.
I wasn't trying to be rude, I just
Go
felt
ahead.
slightly better
Go
about
ahead.
his concern. But even though it's from time to time, it's also pursuant to the authority. This is the only authority. So you can't issue bonds and you don't have authority to issue them. Now, who votes it? So you can vote to issue whatever bonds you want, but unless there's specific authority. So this refers specifically to this particular issue and refunding.
Can you write that statement?
Well, it's there.
But this is.
It's in that.
It's in there.
So this is just to this event?
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay,
So
that was my question.
that's-
Okay, thank you.
I understand what you're saying. I can't answer why.
So can we make a motion to just acknowledge the fact that this motion we're about to make is for this bond transaction and this bond transaction only?
Sure.
Separately.
Do you know what I mean? Separate,
Yeah.
yeah, just for definition of that going down the line.
We don't-
I know,
Clearly, we don't write
This
this
is
motion. This is written by
going
bond
down that
council,
path.
and that's
So
why.
who's reading this motion?
That's why.
Who's making the motion?
Mark's been, his lips are moving.
I'd be happy to make the motion. I don't know if it's necessary to read it out
I don't
and
think it
refer
is.
to it. And
So do you have to have two motions, one for that, this transaction and this transaction only, or do you include it in that one?
No, you don't.
Okay,
He's
so it's
gonna do that one.
two.
So you would like to have a motion that just says, in recognition of a bond transaction that we are currently contemplated,
The next motion is
the next motion is for that particular
That's
transaction.
exactly right. So I would make a motion that the bond transaction we're about to make a motion on is for this transaction and this transaction only as far as authorization purposes go.
This is a little crazy.
Yeah, but it's a,
Anyone second?
I'll second it.
Well, I never, okay, wait a minute.
I'm just.
Let's everybody calm
This is when
down.
you're talking about money in bonds,
Right.
it gets ultra legal, and I'm not even gonna pretend I understand any of this. But if there is something that we are required to frame as a motion, even if we have to, if it's 10 pages long, then that's what we have to do.
No, yeah, we have to do that. We're
Right.
just making a motion to define what we're doing.
That
Because
this-
there's something in there that says.
We're making a motion to say
Doesn't
the next
work.
motion is just for this particular
Well, why
event.
do we need that? I don't understand why we need that, why we can't just go with
There's
the,
there's a phrase in there that's on.
Whatever, I don't want to take people down this
I'd
rabbit
like
hole
some
here.
help from you on
So-
this.
Yeah, I mean, I think the motion is a comfort motion.
It is a comfort
essentially,
motion, that's it.
And it doesn't change anything
Right.
related to the legal motion. that
Okay.
we
That's
did.
exactly
all
right.
right, okay.
So it's
So
actually
that's
very
clear,
specific. It's
yeah.
that at one time or from time to time, but it turns out it's going to be one time, so it's all inclusive. And then it's so specific about the actual, who it is that we're dealing with and the exact amount of money
Mm.
that it essentially, in my view, doesn't
So if
matter.
everyone's comfortable with that, then fine.
So
What would it take
I'm
to get
fine.
legal?
So, wait a second, hold on, just let me think for a second. So, to Neil's point, big deal, make a motion that the next motion is just for that particular event, and then make the motion mark, and that's fine, and then put it to bed,
Sure.
if you would.
So we have a second on the floor for that.
We do?
I made the motion, so there's just,
And you seconded it, oh my goodness, all those in favor. It's unanimous, good lord.
thank you all.
Thank you.
It's just a comment.
Okay, Mark.
So I'll move it by reference. So I move that the motion in detail entitled Vote of the Neshoba Regional School District School Committee for this particular bond refunding process. Well, I move that we consider this motion, basically, without reading all 2 pages of it.
To be entered in as the full
And-
motion. Please maybe add that.
And to be entered in as a full motion and be entered into the minutes of the school
Committee.
committee for the night.
Because we do have to put that, we have to send the minutes along.
Second.
Okay, can I have a second? Thank you, Neil. All those in favor? Goodness, it's unanimous, thank you. That was confusing.
I'm
Bob.
so sorry.
You're not, no, don't be sorry, thank you all. Wow, okay. I'm gonna skip, if it's okay with you folks, I'm gonna skip over the Tri-Town discussion items because they haven't been finalized yet. And when the agenda comes out, how many folks, when is Tri-Town again?
Next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday. Anybody planning on going, please?
Where is it?
To Bolton.
It's in Bolton.
I'm trying to work things out. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to.
Lynn, you going?
I could definitely not go.
You can't go. Mark, you going?
Maybe.
Nicole's
Next
going?
Wednesday, I will try my hardest.
All right, so
I
at
can
least
go.
4 of us are going. You can go, 5 of us. Okay,
Yep.
great, thank you.
And it's in Bolton?
It
in
is.
the little town hall over there?
The
Yes.
Bolton building, right,
Little
right
Bolton.
across the street.
With the
Oh, it's
old-
just a little cute.
The
little-
Austin Town Hall.
Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna
Right,
take
so-
that off.
What time is it? I'm sorry, I just want to
7
make
o'clock.
sure I get, hey, all right, 7 o'clock on the 14th. Is that correct? Thank you, Mike. Okay.
Are we good?
Yep.
The annual work calendar. Okay. Again, we don't have to get into too much more detail. Can everybody just take a look at it? Make sure that your subcommittee deliverables are on this by month, and if there's any changes, that you get them over to me. And we're not gonna vote on this right now, so I'll let you take that offline.
Okay. So that's what we have to, that's like homework that we have to check out?
Yeah.
Please.
Okay.
And why don't we jump to policies? If you want to present those.
These are just a few of the policies that the policy committee went over last policy meeting. Primarily for age. You'll notice I think they all have the same date on them, that they were the April 26th, 2001 date. The policy committee read through and has approved and recommends to the larger school committee that they accept these policies.
One comment.
Yeah.
On the student rights, I'm not debating that the wording, I'm just saying I don't know if it would really be understood by a student. So under student rights, it says act to prevent personal injury using strategies and other restraint training techniques as trained for appropriate de-escalation. A second grader, a ninth grader, I don't know if any of them would understand or know what an appropriate de-escalation strategy for restraint training techniques would be. It's a student we're talking about. I'm not, if that's what the policy committee deems as the appropriate wording, I don't think it's really, theory is good, practice, I don't know if it's real.
Look at more kid-friendly language? Is that what you're sort of suggesting?
I'm just saying, you're saying that a student would
The student has the right to.
that student has the right to use de-escalation techniques and
Right.
strategies to prevent injury from themselves.
Making a good point.
Second grader would know de-escalation strategies, or even know, you know what I mean? That's all I'm saying. I understand the intent, and the intent is good, but, you punch me, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to talk you down.
That's what we want.
That's what we want, but come on. So, that's all.
And actually, it's a really and I think part of the problem even with the bullying is there's not enough information to the kids to let them know what they can and cannot do.
But, even if there is or there isn't, you know what I mean? I'm just saying.
No, there is no information, because a lot of times, what you'll hear is they'll be hit and they won't do anything because they can't, but they don't understand what's going on because, okay, so
We're
you said
almost
you-
enforcing that they can't.
Yeah,
That's,
it's
we're
like
almost
you're-
writing a policy to say
that you
that you
hit,
can't.
and you can't do anything about it.
So, that's all.
So there's no,
So what's the fix? What's the suggested fix?
I was just thinking, when you look at it, if you just say act to prevent personal injury, why do you have to say anything?
Until a staff member can assist.
Right, until a staff member can
Oh.
exist. Just get rid of all of that, the old and the new.
Simplify? All right. I have a couple of questions, one on the line in staff relations. Do we need to say all personnel, it's in the third paragraph, at the end of the first line, but all personnel have the right to appeal through established grievance procedures. We don't need to identify to whom because the grievance procedures
spelled out.
handles that. Okay. And then the last paragraph, it's
What are you looking at, Lorraine?
line and staff
CCB.
relations.
Oh, okay, no, we were just on student rights, weren't we? So now we're on, okay, just trying to keep up.
Okay, and the last paragraph,
Okay.
the first 3 lines is so confusing to me, and maybe because I'm not reading it correctly. Lines of authority do not restrict in any way the ability, sensible working together of all staff members at all levels to work together cooperatively and sensibly to develop the best possible school programs and services. I have no idea what that means. What is that?
This is a very squishy paragraph that we did talk about. Basically, trying to say that policy should not dictate how you address your issues, I guess. That there are common sense ways of going about this. This was this one of the boilerplate
I'm
ones?
sure it
Yeah.
was, yeah. I do think, though, grammatically, I think if we put the word "for" between ability and sensible, we got rid of the comma, so it would read, lines of authority do not restrict in any way the ability for sensible working together of all staff members at all levels to work together cooperatively to develop, get rid of the sensible, the repeat of sensible, to develop the best possible schools, programs, and services. Does that clean it up a little bit?
I still don't know what it means.
Well, it means that regardless of, there is definitely a line and a chain of command, but the opportunity to work together, if it makes the most sense to be expedient and to be collaborative, then that's what happens, and nobody can be punished for doing that.
So I think what you just described is a lot clearer to me than what is written here. That you said chain of command and working together, and I just think this needs to be clarified,
Okay,
because I don't understand it, and it's not because I'm dense, I just really don't understand it. Just clarify it.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the administrative councils, cabinets, and committees,
Oh, yeah.
last paragraph, why are we changing expenses incurred by these councils will be approved by school committee to superintendent?
Because the line of command and authority is these are people that report to me, so I approve those expenses. The school committee has already approved a budget, and I use the budget to make those decisions.
But this is already in there for school committee? I mean, if
Yeah.
it's in there to begin with, and it's been there since 2001, I can't see the value in changing that, especially, and I will say, because travel allowances, I remember in the springtime, was a very sensitive, super optic conversation that was taking place in the towns. And by making this change, it kind of puts that back into focus, I think, a bit. So I'm not, I mean, that's my take on that. I personally don't see why that would change. Who's gonna, who in the school committee is gonna sit there and say, no, you can't do this?
I think if it impacts the
it's-
budget.
But it's a boilerplate for us.
Just logistically, it doesn't. These are events that go on a day-to-day basis.
Mhm.
These aren't salaries, so that's a different issue that you're referring to, Neil.
So maybe a range how about a range? I think it's weird too, and maybe it's just a policy that needed to be updated, and but it was school committee and now it's changing to superintendent, and I don't have any understanding of seeing what those expenses are. I don't know how big or how small or how often, so that's why I'm not comfortable with it.
So these councils, though, they're they're creatures
My
of the
administrative
superintendent. You
team.
create them or extinguish them, and they're
Right.
really about your administering the
Exactly.
district, right? So
Right.
it's really something within the budget somewhere
Exactly.
that you create in order
Right.
to,
And that
in
you've
order to
approved
make
it.
them possible, right? In
Right.
order to assist you to do whatever.
Right.
And in that sense, it's just administratively easy to have you
Right, it's management of the.
managing the cost of the things that you
Exactly,
set up and
yeah.
extinguish.
I don't see why this can't be put into the process like a warrant would be put. We sign this off, the warrants.
You do,
through that.
you do.
Right, so why change it, is what I'm saying.
That's not-
If we have to sign off on this now,
Because that,
It's no
this
big-
is saying in advance, you sign the warrants after it's already been spent. That's why it doesn't make sense, you're gonna see the expense in several different places. You're gonna see it, whether it's in the budget, you're gonna see it when you're going through the budget process, you're gonna see it on the warrants, you're gonna see it every quarter when we do the quarter financials. So you're gonna see the monitoring of the expenses. This is about the actual, to me, when I read this is about the, if we need to buy a book for a particular piece of work that we're doing by the administrative council, then you have to approve buying a book.
So is that what happens now? We approve it?
No.
So we're not following this policy? We haven't been following
Only
this policy?
only in the sense that you've approved the budget. It's not, I couldn't manage day-to-day operations. This is truly, if you're interpreting it to mean that you would approve those kinds of requests in advance, it's taking away the management of the work that I do with my.
So what you want to do is basically change the policy to
advance.
address the current operating procedure.
Right.
But there are line items in the budget for consultative services, supplies and materials, and travel. So there
Right.
are amounts assigned to that.
Exactly.
And so if you got to the point where there was zero on those accounts, you'd say, I'm sorry, you can't
Can't do
go.
Right.
Buy the book yourself,
Right.
whatever. Okay?
But you've never done that.
Okay.
What's the concern?
What's my concern?
Yeah.
Well, one, we have a policy that we're not following. That we haven't. That we haven't.
Right.
That's uncomfortable. And I don't want to hand tie administrative operations to the point where it's like, you got to ask for everything you need.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
yeah, absolutely.
But
So could we add language in this at the end that travel will not, include, any travel done within the district itself will not be eligible for reimbursement? And see, the way I see this is this could also be something down the line that turns into another reimbursement opportunity for people within the district going back and forth. If we are eliminating this traveling from the budget, this still gives the possibility of
This is specific to committees that I might create.
So investigative travel outside the district would
Exactly.
satisfy that. If
Totally.
we wanted to amend it in that way.
Would you
Right.
feel satisfied if there were a line that said something like, to the, according to the amounts budgeted, or a similar kind of idea, so that
Outside the
it's
district.
understood that there's a limit, and we're just giving him authority to spend within the limits already granted?
outside the district, I think covers it pretty quickly, right? It's 3 words.
so can you consider putting that in?
I would consider it. Yeah, we can talk about it
Talk
again.
about it?
Yeah.
All right, so why don't we, is there any more
This is just the
conversation
first
on
reading.
this?
This is just
Yeah,
the first
I-
reading, yes.
Right, so we can close this out.
For the line and staff relations, there's no red line, because this is a whole brand-new thing, is that correct? Oh, no, it's 2001.
It's
No,
an old
just-
policy. We
So
didn't
it's
make
an
any
unchained
changes.
old policy, so correct.
Right.
Got it.
Okay, are we moving on?
So these are all first readings?
Yeah, they're all first readings, right, Nicole?
Second
So there was
reading.
some second ones.
No, second by the
First
policy,
reading.
but it's for the school committee,
Got
it's all
it.
your first reading.
All first reading.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, we're moving on. Next on the agenda is the Hale principal position. So I want to, before we start having any discussion about this, I kind of want to set this up a little bit. In the packet, there are a couple of documents that were sent to me, and I'm going to turn it over to Kathy Codian in a minute. This discussion is a philosophical discussion. This is not a discussion about an individual. It is not a discussion that is evaluative. It is a philosophical discussion about how do we think the schools should be staffed from an administrative perspective in the district. Okay? Kathy?
Thanks.
Sure.
So I want to reiterate what Lorraine is saying about, I'm talking about a position and a process, not a person. And this is based on my opinion. So I put together some thoughts. So when I came on board, I became curious about the process by which the Hale Middle School principal position came to be held by a central office administrator. I examined this by looking at school committee meeting minutes and superintendent reports starting back in August 2009. My findings are included in the school committee packet. My interpretation of the school committee's minutes is that the school committee did not want the dual position to be permanent. The school committee meeting minutes from February 17, 2011 show that the superintendent proposed keeping the dual roles, but this proposal was never moved by the committee. In school committee meeting minutes from February 25, 2010, members expressed their concern about losing the Hale Middle School principal position from the budget, quote, for fear of not being able to justify getting it back. At that meeting, the superintendent advised that, quote, with every budget we set priorities. We would set the priority that the funding for a principal at Hale would in fact be top, even if it meant reorganizing some other department in either central office or elsewhere. Ideally, in 2012, we will be dealing with some additional revenue. The superintendent further stated that he did not have any concern regarding the ability to fund a principal position. I would like to propose that this committee have a discussion regarding reinstating a dedicated principal at the Hale Middle School. There are 6 schools in our district, 5 of which have a dedicated principal. A dedicated principal would provide Hale with 100% of his or her focus as an educational instructional leader. I think most of us are familiar with all the demands that are placed on teachers in addition to their responsibility to support student learning. What we don't hear as much about, or what we don't hear at all, are the demands that are placed on our educational leaders, our superintendent and principals. These demands have increased with the advent of ed reform and have continued to increase with each new initiative. No Child Left Behind, Common Core Standards, PARC assessments, bullying prevention and intervention, new standards for administrative leadership, the new teacher supervision and evaluation system, just to name a few. What also may not be visible to the public is principal leadership in the area of best practice to improve teaching and learning. Things like professional learning communities, data teams, formative assessment, teacher mentoring, differentiated instruction, and response to intervention, again, to name a few. In the interest of time, I won't get into details of everyday school leadership and management of a school, except to say that whatever a principal has on his or her daily agenda goes out the window when the principal is needed for a child, a family, or staff in crisis. Excuse me. I feel strongly about the need for each school to have a dedicated principal, and I hope we will decide to make funding a principal for Hale Middle School a budget priority. Thank you.
Okay, Kathy, thank you. Thoughts about the concept of a dedicated principal in each school? Hey, Stowe people, I think we need to hear from you. I mean, I really would like to hear what you folks, do you have an opinion? Have you heard opinion?
I think that it is obvious that the administration has to have the ability in certain situations to allow for creative staffing, as was done several years ago. The looking forward, though, in a permanent position, what has to be continually addressed is the dual role compatible with future needs? And I don't know, I'm not in anyone's shoes up there. Given everything that Kathy said of what is new and what are the more demands for a principal, if a dual role is compatible with the future constraints, the future pressures that are coming more and more to our individual schools and our individual teachers, and the teacher support that is needed.
Kath?
After reading the whole thing today, I just want to say thank you, George, for such an amazing amount of work and how much time and effort you spend in Hale. It's such a high-performing school. So thank you, George. Even in some of the meeting minutes, you said how, you're at a time in your life you can spend so many hours just at work. So thank you. If we lost George, I can't imagine what would happen, because he fills two real roles.
But remember, we don't want to talk about the individual.
I know, but I'm just saying, because of the precedent in the structure we have created, is there candidates out there that could fill this type of structure?
Well, I don't think the question is replacing George.
No, I'm saying if George ever was to leave, if he left the district for some reason, is there people like him, candidates like him, that can fill two roles? We've created a role that is so specific to a person, instead of having two distinct roles like we had in the past. Are we setting ourselves up for a problem organizationally? Because we've created a role that fits a person, not two specific needs. That's all I'm saying.
Well, that's a good point. So, Mark?
I think we should take a look at our staffing for our principals throughout our schools and our administration, and continue a conversation about what's appropriate. Our schools are always changing, and it makes sense to reevaluate what our positions are everywhere.
Reevaluate, you mean, what do you mean by that?
Meaning, in particular, this position, but also all of our staffing choices throughout the district.
So, but for this conversation, as far as one principal, one school, or not, is it important to you? Is it not important to you? Do you think that it's important to the constituents? That's the question.
I think it could be quite important to some of our constituents, but I actually don't know.
Okay.
And therefore, it's worth having a conversation about.
All right, Lynn, our third. Sorry to put the STO reps
That's
on the
okay.
line, but
So we're having a conversation as to whether we're going to have a conversation?
we are having a conversation as to the philosophical, it's a philosophical discussion about, is it important to have one principal dedicated to one school, or is it not? And I think what Kathy said actually really well was, not that I'm surprised, was have we put ourselves in a position, because we have this unique individual filling this role right now, where we may be at a disadvantage if George left. Is that what you said?
I'm just saying, we built a role around a person instead of having two roles, which is kind of the more norm.
Right.
I'm not so sure we built it.
Well, it happened, so
It
whether it was... So if you don't have anything to add, don't feel that you have to. Neil?
So I look at this a few ways. As far as a organizational perspective, I have to stop and ask if not having a dedicated principal is okay in one school, can we have a non-dedicated principal in every other school? Because there's some serious savings that would take place in that. I think that's a silly conversation to have. So then I say, well, what would other like-kind, high-performing school districts be doing? And do we have any other people that we could look at that are filling multiple roles and being successful at them? And I don't think so. I would say that each principal in this district would say that they are extremely busy. And from what I've seen of like our Florence Sawyer principal, you turn around and it could be midnight and he's going to be around the corner or something. It's kind of scary. But that being said, I really do think that we should, for the district, have a dedicated principal at each and every school.
Okay. I think it's only fair to ask the administration what their thoughts are. Mike?
Well, I'll start off by saying I think we do have a dedicated principal at the Hale Middle School. I think, when you talk about what the roles and responsibilities are, we have created a unique role and responsibility in this particular job description. However, it comes out of knowing and understanding what the individual is able to do. Would it happen for every individual? No. I happen to come from a background of having dual jobs often. I was a superintendent, director of special ed. I was a director, principal. It's not uncommon in Massachusetts. It's not uncommon. There are superintendent principals for vocational schools. There are superintendent principals for highly academic individual high schools. So it's not an uncommon creation. It works. It's about understanding what the roles and responsibilities of the individual school are. I have no problem with the current organizational schema and have no problem going forward with it.
So what is the risk mitigation is there risk mitigation?
Well, there are legal entanglements around the requirements of changing the organizational schema.
Well, we would want to consult with counsel on that, wouldn't we?
Additionally, you can. I can tell you what they are, and just reading the law and knowing the law, you know what they are.
I just want to correct too. I think you misunderstood what I was saying when I said dedicated. I know George is extremely dedicated.
No, I understood.
He's a
Right,
great
a single
individual
role.
for this.
I know, I
And
understand
It
your
wasn't toward him. It was dedicated as exactly a single,
As 100%
dedicated,
focused.
100% role exclusively for principal.
Right.
Okay.
All right, well, I think probably the best thing to do at this point is probably ask the policy subcommittee to take a look at this and come back to us with a recommendation on what's your recommendation as far as staffing at the principal level at each school? Should we have one principal per school, or is that something that you think that should be left up to the superintendent?
All right, it is all needed.
So, sorry to give you another one. Okay? All right, let's jump into the subcommittee reports. We're almost there, folks. Finance, Mark.
We've made our way through a preliminary look at the revenue for the district, thanks to George's memoranda, and took a look at revolving funds as well today, and looking forward to taking a look at staffing at the next meeting. I think those are the basic things I have to say. I think we have, as you know, we have a big agenda, and we may have to meet regularly in addition to our usual time before the school committee, and we're working out when and how to do that.
Okay, great. Kathy, Cody Ann.
Personnel Subcommittee met on September 28th and October 5th. Topics we discussed were the Hale Middle School principal position, technology staffing, and the superintendent's annual plan and the process for presenting it to the school committee. On October 5th, we entered into executive session, which was a strategy session in preparation for superintendent contract negotiation, and the next meeting is October 19th.
Okay, thank you. Policy, Nicole.
We met on September 30th. Neil unfortunately was absent, so Kathy and I did as much as we could without him.
Just struggled along.
It was difficult. You saw much of what we went through today with the first readings of those particular policies. We also went through a number of other policies that will be coming towards you. We talked briefly about the graduation requirements and what we would need to see to craft a updated policy about that. And that was about it.
Awesome. Lynn, space study?
We did not have enough for quorum, but we did discuss. So the RFS should be out next week
Yes.
for the demographic study. So that'll go out, and again, that'll come back to us with their recommendation before it's actually.
And when's the next meeting?
The next meeting is October 13th.
Okay, thanks.
The modules are in, and they came in on budget, so at 85,000.
Awesome.
So we're good. That was according to Bill. Let's see. The MSBA current standard for class utilization is 85%, and we're about just over 90. And so it looks like we need 3 general classrooms and 1 science classroom. We're still working on it. Parking is working great, but Michael Ward wanted to emphasize that if the footprint of the school increases, we're going to decrease the number of parking spaces for teachers. For teachers, yeah.
Have we ever thought about reducing the number of I know, right? Reducing the number of student parking spaces, oh my gosh!
I think we'll have to look at all possibilities to be able to do it.
Alrighty then.
So some open areas of discussion.
Kathy. I'm sorry, Lynn, go ahead.
That's all right. The consequences of less than 7 periods of instruction and the number of classrooms needed if they're going to get everyone out of study hall into an actual classroom. So we're going to look at that. The task force is going to work on prioritizing items.
Oh, good.
And Michael is going to have somebody from the MSBA come in and talk about the SOI process.
Well, hopefully you'll have a quorum for that.
And
Okay, thank you.
that's about it. And the next meeting is October 15th.
Nicole, CPAC.
CPAC has a couple of events coming up. First, on Wednesday, October 21st, which unfortunately all of us are going to be here, they're having a social skills curriculum and supports from preschool to high school presentation. That would be really awesome to go to.
Do you want to miss our meeting?
Yeah, I do kind of. It's going to take place at the Sawyer School at 7 o'clock. I recommend that if you're not in a school committee meeting that you go.
Can I tape them?
I'm sorry?
Is that one
I
of the ones I
was.
can't tape?
That's a good one. I don't know. And then they're also holding their first open house at Center School on Friday, the 23rd at 9 a.m. for any Center School parent or community member that would like to be more involved. Please show up.
Thank you.
Just for start?
That's their first open house is going on at Center School. Yes.
So can anybody in the district go?
I'm sure. I don't see them turning people away. They're good people.
Superintendent's report.
Sure, I won't read the whole thing. I actually want to highlight 2 things that are on there. One is we did launch on Monday, on October 5th, our new website. There are a few kinks we're working out, but I think overall we've had a lot of positive feedback about its navigation and its ease to do so. So we're really happy about this. I can't thank Cindy Larson and our ITS teachers enough who helped, as well as Alita, in trying to make sure that we were consistent across all of our pages. So it really was a group effort, and I'm very pleased with it. And because it happened today, although we're talking about Trivium is on your list for private school approval. Today I did meet the new executive director of the Perkins School, Dr. Michael Ames, and so it was great to connect with him and learn what's new there, and their approval will be on our next agenda for discussion.
Good. I have a couple questions. On the family and community engagement on your report, you asked, it says, I've asked our technology liaisons to be a focus group. So the technology liaisons are
No,
going to
so-
hold them, or going to be the focus group?
No. So they were given the link to give us feedback, and several pieces. So they were, and that can be ongoing if they'd like to do that, because the technology.
Oh, our technology liaisons.
Yeah.
Oh, I was wondering who they. She's laughing. That's not funny. Don't laugh. Okay. And then on the last one, the discussions for professional culture, the discussions will focus on administrative assignments for evaluations of district staff. So when you decide what those administrative assignments are, will we, remember we talked about getting some kind of a quick update on
Yep.
committees?
No, that's part of that. So that was that work. So we're still in conversation, and in fact, I suspect that we will be bringing to you when we get it done, because it's part of the. There are two ways this would go. If it goes in our handbook, we can just update you. But if it goes to our contract language, we'll bring that for a vote to folks.
So we'll find out what it is. Okay. All right.
Michael, I had a quick question on teaching and learning and the facilitators for the writing initiative. So this kind of reminded me of something. So I know that writing is sort of like a across-the-board piece right now, and so you might write something for science, and if you did not do well, you'll get points taken off your test. It's happened. And so I'm just wondering if there is a format that's in place, because you know, the question I guess I have is if you're really great at science, you're not extremely strong in writing, how much influence is this going to place on the outcome of your science score?
Right.
Like, is there a finite amount that could be taken off from a test, or is there a separate breakout? But
So those aren't the discussions we're having right now. You know, in terms of what points are related to an individual assessment or up to individual educators. So they each determine that. What we are trying to get to, hopefully by the end of this year, is to have a common rubric that all departments would use across, that our ELA teachers approve of. And so that there would be a common idea, you know, in terms of points related to the different aspects of that rubric.
so I have seen a little bit of disparity that's taken place with some parents that have brought that forward on, you know, between teachers and how much emphasis they might put on the grades and how pertinent they might be to that particular subject.
Right. So certainly across grades, content, especially if you're talking about the high school, certainly across content that is the same. So for example, in a you know, accelerated chemistry class, if there are going to be points taken off for a lab report, they should be consistent about that point structure between whether Mr. King is the teacher, Mr. Jones is the teacher, or Mrs. Tier is the teacher. So that should be consistent. I mean, that, you know, that's our ultimate goal.
Okay, super. Thank you.
I have
Easier said than done.
a question or two. I'm curious if the town administrators had much to report and what you had to say with them in your meeting.
Well, did they have much to report?
Meeting, talking about their own budgets and anticipation.
We had a lot of conversations. As you know, the nature of those meetings that they're not public. So I want to honor our conversation that was in that room. But we had a lot of conversation and free exchange of where each community is and where the board, where the school district is, and we talked about capital. It was an area of concern and question. So we went around the room and talked about that. That occupied our time pretty significantly.
Okay, any other questions for Michael? Nope.
Private school approvals, could you put forth the checklist that you go through
Oh,
for
sure.
these people, so that we
Absolutely.
understand what you
Absolutely.
take a look at?
Okay. Correspondence, who's got Kathy?
I didn't have a letter, but when I was at the high school open house, a couple people came up to me very concerned about some of the academic class sizes this year, over 30 in some core academic courses. So that was very concerning to several people who just stopped me in the hall and said, hey, what's going on? So.
But I heard the same thing.
Did you? I don't know all the classes, I don't have
Yeah.
the list, but people stopped me.
A couple of AP classes.
Yeah, and honors math,
Right.
I heard.
The higher level
Yeah,
classes.
Over 30?
over
Yeah,
30,
33.
33, I heard
Oh!
they're with the same person.
No, I don't know.
32. So, I know young, like the younger grade.
Yeah, these are older, old people. Me. All right. Thank you, Kath. Neil?
I have somebody who had contacted me via email to actually say kudos on the new website.
Oh, good.
They liked the format. They did temper that a little bit with, they'd like to see,
The but.
yeah, new information coming in there, which I know is going to be
Yes.
coming, updated information and so forth. And then one thing that I noticed is search tool. I was looking for the NEASC report, actually, for something particular that was on there, and I couldn't find it on any of the drop downs that
Uh-huh.
are there, which I love in place of the menu. So I did a search, and there were like 10,800 replies or something that came back, and it started with like
Did you look through them?
2,000, oh yeah, so I got to about 9,000 and then I stopped, but, you know, it started with like the 2004 and just a little tidbit of the report that was on the, so ultimately I couldn't find, you know, the NEASC report, but I'm not sure what the parameters are with the search, which we'll probably go over when we
I'll
give
find-
feedback
yeah.
and stuff for
Yeah.
the meetings, but
Okay.
just, that's both personal and the correspondence.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Lynn, you have-
And then I got one on fingerprinting.
Oh,
There's a
that's right.
concern that people are not going to volunteer.
That, we have not had that problem. We have tons of volunteers. You know, we're following the law in terms of what's there. And the requirement is, if it's determined by the principal in consultation with the teacher in terms of the level of independence the volunteer will have relative to the students, they have to be fingerprinted. I mean, that's what the law says, and that's what our policy says, and so we're following it. I think specifically, just different things when I got wind of this, you know, it may not have been as clearly followed at center school, and so it feels new to folks.
Well, actually, if you read the law, it says that the decision to require the submission of fingerprints by volunteers for this fingerprint-based state and national checks will be made locally
Right, which we did.
by the school district.
Right.
So we could overturn that if that becomes a problem.
It certainly could.
Really?
Well, it's part of our policy.
It's not,
We have a single starting policy.
I know, I remember that from last year.
we could bump it back to you.
I think
What's,
we have not had a problem.
I would
with
say, what's
volunteers.
wrong with the policy? I think what needs to be communicated more is that this doesn't preclude anyone from volunteering.
Right.
It precludes someone from, like, being a chaperone on a field trip with a, you know, a set group of kids. And that, if you want to do that, then yes, you do need to be fingerprinted. If you're going to go into the classroom and run a fluency group, you know, within the classroom, you do not need to be fingerprinted.
So is that being communicated?
Well, yeah, I think maybe that
Well,
needs to
that's-
be more clearly
I think
communicated.
the principal, in his effort to make it clear, has raised some of these questions.
I went to the open house and we were told, if you're going to volunteer in the classroom, you're being fingerprinted.
Oh, might want to fix that.
And you're going to have to go to a state-approved site and you're paying and.
Right, those pieces are true. I'll go back and talk with him, but that's not how it was presented
At Center's
when I
Open
talked
House?
about it.
I
Yeah.
did not hear that at Center's Open House.
I didn't see it, so.
Well,
That's
kudos.
not the
It
message
might be a
we want people
specific
to have.
teacher?
If that's the understanding.
Well, is that where you heard it?
Oh, yes,
Yes.
that was part of the overview for volunteering.
Only if they're going to be alone in supervision. that they would need to be rewritten.
So somebody needs to help the teacher understand
Well, I can't imagine it's just her.
that is. Well, let Michael and his gang handle that, but kudos to this person who sent the email. All right, I think unless there's other correspondence.
I just had two questions. For the website, is there going to be a spot for clubs for the middle schools? And who is going to be responsible for updating this? Is that like would that go over to the PTOs? They have to talk about the club, like, are they responsible for the club information on the new website?
Well, the advisor would be responsible for the club information.
Yes.
And then, just back to MCAS, when will the individual results be available to the parents?
They're being mailed out today.
Would the advisors for the clubs that you're talking about, would they follow the same schedule as the teachers as far as the tasks and goals and getting them onto the website? So that,
Oh, the information?
yeah.
That's a great question, Lynn. So we haven't asked the advisors to have necessarily their own web page piece. So let me kind of drill down around that a little bit more with the principals, especially. Because most of that information comes out through the newsletters and the announcements at the school level. So, but there might be some who want a web page, which would be fine. Which then they would have to follow our prescription.
So right now it's not open to them? Is that something that you normally put on there?
Right, we have not talked about those groups yet as a placeholder on the site.
Okay. Consent agenda, assume that it's approved and passed, yes. Okay. All right, folks, what do we want to do about next meeting? I know that we're going to talk about the principal's potential workshop and structure. I've got a couple of other items. Is there anything you want to discuss, consider for next?
What's on our agenda that you have, that big master list thing?
Ah, great.
Might as well use it.
Well, we just ticked off a few of them.
All right, yeah.
16-17 budget assumptions and progress to date. So that's finance. Evaluate personnel needs, that's coming through personnel. Michael just did benchmark. Oh, the Emerson Hospital Health Survey. Why do we have that in October?
Well, we would normally get the results back, but this is the year we take it, so we don't have results this year.
Okay, so I will just I'll make that gray, but thank you for taking that off. We have teacher-student presentation, 8th grade one-to-one laptop initiative. So this is the first one. So
Right.
can we have a teacher, somebody from the schools?
We're working on that. I do have somebody who's set for the 28th, a new group.
But versus someone who doesn't work in the schools, can we have?
Right, I want a
Okay.
teacher. Yep.
So for the 28th, you want to do that?
No, I'm going to shoot for the 21st for the 8th grade initiative.
Excellent.
But I already have somebody, high school green team that want to come.
Okay, great.
They got a grant.
Okay. And then website enhancements. We were going to have a presentation on that?
Right, so that could be quick.
Okay. So, and we're going to have to finalize the calendar of activities, guys. So please get all your, thank you for the subcommittee. I know you're sick of it, right? All the goals and forcing them down your throat, but it's really worth it. But if you could just marry your goals to the calendar and get it back to me so we can have one master list, and that's going to help drive these meetings. This is a crazy amount of stuff to get through in a meeting. And it's amazing that we got through it. And I really think it's because everybody comes prepared and does the work before we walk in the meeting. So, thank you, and hopefully we'll be able to kind of calm things down a little bit, except for finance. Sorry. All right, I think that's it. So now I think we are ready to adjourn. Does someone want to make a motion, because we're going to go into executive session? Kathy?
Yeah.
Or Kathy? Nicole?
Motion to adjourn.
Kathy?
No. I move that the school committee enter into executive session to discuss negotiation strategy for superintendent contract. Attendees will be all school committee members and Kevin Bresnahan from Murphy, Hesse, Toomey, and Lehane LLP. At the conclusion of the executive session, we will not be returning to open session.
Okay. Kathy second?
Kathy.
I think I have to do a roll call.
That's a roll
I have to
call.
do a roll call.
Yep.
Kathy Codian,
Yes.
Lynn Coletti. Yes. Neil Darcy.
Yes.
Mark, it's alphabetical. Mark Jones.
Yes.
Nicole Odeker.
Yes.
Kathy Tier. Lorraine Ramasco, yes. That's it. Thank you.